This came about. I was a senior teacher in charge. Part of my responsibilities were cover, and I kind of inherited a system where it was an email trail or it was a note left on a desk, not just to me, but maybe to one or two other people. And it just was a wee bit bitty. And I thought, right, we need to do something here to sort of uh, bring this all in line and also leave us something that we can monitor a wee bit better. So the first thing I sort of thought of was, staff wanted to know, if they put a request in for a planned absence or for leave, it could be school or personal business. Did you find yourself waiting for a response to see if it's been granted, or did you just assume that once that form was put in or paper form was put in, that was it done? And then the school management, I was finding it difficult to keep track of the requests and also trying to get timely responses to people so they could make plans, or teachers so they could make plans to ensure that people were informed, and not just myself, but that the principal was also involved in the decision-making process. So we moved from paper to, first of all, a form, and then whenever I was asked the question, is there any way that we could automate the form, I started to look into Power Automate. So first wee slide here, we'll take a wee look. And this is the initial option. And this is an option that still might suit many of you if you're in a smaller school, for example, or it's a really good way to sort of start the process. And then when you feel a little bit braver about it, then you can start to look at Power Automate. So you can see there's really two things that we were using, two parts of the 365 suite. And the first one was Web Excel, not your desktop Excel, but you would go to 365 suite, which has changed icons. It used to be a nice wee orange square, and now it's different. That's all I'll say. And you'll go to Insert and Forms and a new form. Now, what you should have is a form template done in advance, because you'll have to create this all really from this web base. You create the form and then eventually you'll share it. But what is different about this is that once the form is completed, the data collected from the form automatically inserts it into an Excel sheet, which is live. You do not have to go digging about into forms and downloading each time. This can live or rest itself on the Microsoft 365 homepage, and you can share it with those who need to know. It's probably better to do that as well. I'll show you the data in this a little bit later on in more detail. But this is the most powerful option. It is pretty much bulletproof. I've used the form that we have created over 1,500 times, and anytime there's been a mistake with it, it's been my own human error. Maybe it was only a couple of times, but it has happened. It will always record the data from the form, and said it's great for monitoring cover requests, and it's a simple click to sort them into the date. The only thing is that you will then manually have to respond to the person who's provided the request, but the email's there. So it's just a matter of just either copy and pasting that, or clicking on it from Excel will bring you to email. So that's the first option, and it's the safest and easiest option, but there's still a wee bit of work for a manager to do in that, but it's quite easy for staff. I will show you what the form looks like as well later on in the presentation. Second one is the first two steps are exactly the same. You are creating your Web Excel, your form from the Web Excel, but then here's where Power Automate comes in. And basically what Power Automate does, it links the form and the form responses to an approval system, which then you can see here, form responses go to step 3, and the approval is either yes or no, or approve or reject, and that automatically will send an email to the member staff with that decision. So this, again, you can go back into Excel and get your monitoring data from there. And this is a pretty good next step for those people who just want to try something different with Power Automate, and it's quite a simple flow to create. And then we have what I'm going to call the deluxe version, and this is the version that we're using at St. Joseph's here. And remember, it's taken me 2.5 years to 3 years to get to this, and I am not an IT expert, but I do like to dabble a little bit. And I've broken this a couple of times, and I'm glad I've had the Excel backup to sort of, make sure that all the cover requests were put in place. But what we have is step 1, you create the planned absence form again from Web Excel, always to have that backup. Then you create a team. You can create a cover team, or you can create a team from scratch. or have a team, maybe like a senior management team in there already. And then this is the new part of it that I've only started using this year, is creating a Microsoft list, which used to be known as SharePoint list. Once you have the prep work done in this, which I'll show you in the next slide, it goes to Power Automate and the same steps go through, except this time your data is saved onto a Microsoft list. You can see an a request coming in. You can then see if the principal has done their job or not and approved a request, and you can remind them or remind the principal secretary to remind them, or contact them and say, can I click on approval or not? And then this will be sent out again via email, yes or no, but it also updates the SharePoint list about the decision, something that Excel, as far as I know, cannot do. So same as before, but this time you're adding a Microsoft list, and it's great. What I like about the list is it's really customizable. You can filter the view to be only from the day that you're providing cover and beyond. And there's also the desktop app version and phone app version of it too. So option 3 is the one we're going to look at, because if you like option 3, then it does leave you sort of free to choose between option 1, 2, or 3. This is the prep work. Prep work, first of all, create a planned absence form. Download the Excel sheet. Now, if you're just using the form, you don't need to download anything. It lives in the cloud. But if you want to use lists, you need to download the Excel sheet to get the headings from it, which you'll use to create your list. Then we've got the team, which you can either create or use an existing team, such as a senior management team. Then with lists, you go to lists in 365. You're going to add a new list of a wee diagram later on that shows you this. Create a list, then add from the planned absence Excel sheet that you downloaded. You can customize the list, and you will create the list in the team here. That's why the team is important, because that's where the list will live. It has to be attached to that. So a bit more detail. Creating the form via Web Excel. So insert new form, rename the Excel sheet, and that will live nice and neatly in Office 365. You never need to download that sheet. Otherwise, if you do download it, then it loses the link to the form. And what Donna will do is I can give you a template of a form. Donna sends that link out through chat, which you can use or edit. Hopefully that'll be a wee starter for you, but every school will be different. Every school even has different timetables and times on it, so you will have to customize that form. But at least there's nothing worse than a blank sheet, I think, in life. So if you get a starter, it should actually help. Also, when you complete the form, it's getting that form out there, that staff know how to access it. And you can see here, hopefully I'll be able to zoom in. I've created a link through the My School homepage. Now, that's not just a link for the planned absence form. There's also an events calendar in there. There's also staff homepage. Just makes it a wee bit easier for staff to find that. And My School is the thing that staff see every single day when they log onto the computers. Also, we've used QR codes. QR code is in the staff handbook. It's also as part of a button, an action button on the school bulletin, which is we use SharePoint to get that out, and also on the staff homepage as well. So the thing about it is as well that I should have said the planned absence form is also C2K enabled only. So you make sure that is the setting that's on your form. So not just anybody can fill it in. The form basically creates the headings in the Excel sheet. And then once a form is filled out, the Excel sheet collects that data in real time and populates the headings lists. So as I said before, this can be found in Microsoft 365, or you can save it somewhere in OneDrive, wherever is easy for you to get at. What we find about this is the data that you can get from the forms is very good, and it's good for an audit trail over the type of planned absence being asked for, and those people who are requesting planned absence forms as well. The one thing to bear in mind, any change to the question in the form, try not to tinker about with the form too much, because once that changes the headings, the link is broken to the previous heading. It will create a new heading for you, but it just, it doesn't look great. So now, if we're using Microsoft Lists as part of the flow process, we just download this Excel sheet, and then the one thing you have to do here is add the extra column and just call it approve. And that'll make sense when we come to list later on, because that's what's going to be populated from the approval decision and the approval part of the flow. So step 1B is probably the easiest step of the whole lot, is to create a team or use a team. I think creating a team is very useful because you may have the principal secretary involved there, and you may have the cover manager and the principal there, and there's a conversation that probably needs to happen in regards to whether subs need to be brought in or not. It can be done through any other avenue, but if you've got a team, why not use it for that? The site is also where your Microsoft list will live in there, because Teams is basically linked to SharePoint as well. And approvals is the app and Teams that will be used to approve or decline requests. So you'll get a notification on your computer, and that will bring you to Teams. And literally from there, you can accept or reject a request. And you'll see a bit of that in a few minutes. So we've got create a Microsoft list. So we're search for lists in 365, just type in lists, and simple process of add a new list, but from Excel. And that's where you will add or upload your downloaded planned absence Excel sheet. And that gives you all the headings that you need for the next part of the process. What you have to do though is customize the headings, because the default is number. So what I do is I change most of these to text. The only one that I don't really change would be date. The ones for the dates, because that will allow you to be able to sort of filter through views and customize that at a later point. And for approval, choice, you just change that to choice. So that only takes a few minutes to do, depending on how many headings you have. And then you create the list in the team that you want. That's essential. Without that, the list will not work. So you create the list in your new Microsoft team. This will make sense later, because when you're in your flow, it will ask you which site do you want to link the list to. And if you haven't attached this site, then you can't go any further. So now we arrive at Power Automate. I have mixed feelings about Power Automate. Power Automate is brilliant, and it has eased my workload as a manager. It's very frustrating though. As I said, I'm not overly into IT. I have no notion at all about coding, and it has taken me a wee while to play through with that. If you've got somebody in your school who knows about that, it's always good to use them as an ear to sound off on. So Microsoft 365 is where Power Automate resides, and that's the symbol for it. So you go into 365 and you do research for Power Automate, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to try and create a flow. And if you watch the video, this is where I take a wee break for 5 or 6 minutes. It'll take you through this process. Don't worry about the detail of it. This just sort of gives you a flavour as to things such as dynamic content, which are created in the flow. All sounds very techy, but once you get your head around it, it's actually not overly difficult. First thing to do is open 365 and click on Apps, and you'll then have the Power Automate button, and that will open up Power Automate. Next, click Create, and we're going to create a flow. We're going to scroll down the page, and we're going to try and open a template, or start from the connector first, which is Microsoft Forms, which will bring us through to a number of templates. The one we want to use is on the right hand side, Send Form Responses for Approval. So here's a ready-made template. It's just going to take us through the connectors first of all linked to C2K account. And here is our template, which we're going to add to and edit. So first of all, we're going to look for our form. So just type in the name of the form that you've created. In this case, it's planned absence request example. So that is now the form linked to the flow. Next, we're looking for the response details. So we put in the form ID again. So just type in the name and select, and then the response ID. And just in case it's not there, it should be though. It's just a matter of going on the dynamic content button, and there it is. Click. And that will ensure all the responses now are linked to the form as well. Okay, the next thing is we're going to change a couple of actions. We're going to add an action here. And that's going to be create an item in the SharePoint list. This is the list that we created earlier. So from that, then we go to the site address, which is in the team. Just scroll down, find the team to link it to. And then the list name should appear. And there it is, example. And now we're going to add a bit of dynamic content to each of these areas. You can see here, name of teacher. I'm going to add the email in each one of these headings, or as they're called, parameters. You add the dynamic content, so whenever the response on the form will populate these headings on the SharePoint list every time a form is filled out. So you can see the more information you have on this here, the more detail your SharePoint list will begin to acquire. Now this is the main list, so this will fill in after every single planned absence response is submitted, and then you will start and wait for the approval, and once the approval, an approve or reject has been decided upon, this list will update, and you'll see that whenever it's a update item, and that means your SharePoint list will then show you whether the response has been approved or rejected. You'll also get email notifications as well about that. So that's create item. Then we're going to get rid of this create item. We don't need it anymore. So we just delete. And then we're going to delete my profile. We don't really need that either. And we're going to add in both true and false. I'm going to type in update item and click on it. And this is a bit easier to do. Same site address, same list name, and click, and then the ID, just click dynamic content, and it's there for you. And then the only advanced parameter you need to worry about, the only heading, is approval value. And what I normally do is you can put in approve or reject, but I usually go to the dynamic content and put in outcome. And that's the outcome of the approval. And there it is. We do exactly the same for false. So that means if a planned absence is declined, it will populate the SharePoint list as well. And speedily zipping through this approval value. Once again, that's outcome. That's the outcome at the previous step. So now we're going to add email. So we're going to click in send email v2, and then we're going to add the content in now. We want this to go back to the responder. So we type in responder's email, and then really importantly put a semicolon in. If you don't put one in, it won't work if you've got a second email address. So give a title. In this occasion, I'm going to put success in, and then you can compose the rest of your email. Now, you can put as little or as much detail into this as you wish. I like to put in the dates and the times just to remind people. Maybe somebody has several requests in, and maybe not all of them will be successful. So the name, basically, and then you add dynamic content again, and this comes straight from the form. So scroll down, and you'll find names of teacher under the form, or teachers. Add in the date. Again, dynamic content. So just type in start date or whatever your heading is, and that'll come up with your end date. And you can also add in the times of the cover. And you can do that from either, you can notice there's SharePoint icons and there's also Forms icons. It doesn't matter, it'll be picked up. And then the comment, or before that, sorry, the reason as well, you can add that into. And that's the response details that were submitted by the person who sent the form. And the comment is quite good because you can see there it's part of approvals, and you can actually type a comment into the approvals on Teams, and the member staff will do that. And you do exactly the same for the rejection email. And what I do is normally sort of probably a bit of green, a bit of highlight just to color code it so people can see straight away if the request has been successful or not. And so there you have your flow, and it's really important to test from it. So what you need to do is fill in a form. You click test, and you'll see it now, test. Now, manually is the first time you'll do it. You'll submit manually, you'll fill a form in and watch it go, and then you can use that same form to continue to test. The advice is probably not to tinker with it too much. I've done that before in the past and ended up with the flow not working. And there you have it. Okay, hopefully that explains that little part of it a bit more. Simply put here, I suppose, just to zoom in, and this helps summarize it a bit more, is you use the Microsoft form, you have that done in advance. When a new response is submitted, the response details all link within the flow. And then you've got what's called an approval center here, which will notify whoever you ask it to notify. The principal, yourself. I usually put 2 or 3 names in that there, but usually it's the principal who will be the person who notifies it, and that can come through Teams as well. In fact, that's would be the main way of doing that, through Teams, but you will also get an email, and you can also approve from or reject from that email too. And then that we have our email sent out. The only difference with the option 3 deluxe version are the SharePoint extras of create the item in SharePoint and update the item in SharePoint once the decision has been made. So that just summarizes that little bit of it. This is what a response would look like in Outlook. And I'll just zoom in. Okay, because I sent it myself, it's from me to me. But you'll see usually the name of the person who has the approvals linked to them will be the person's name that shows up. Name's there, and I didn't put any reason for a cover. And also, that's what it would look like as well. It's the one nobody wants to get. So Outlook will send the email once a decision has been made in the approvals. And Outlook's good because not all teachers will use Teams, but it is a very effective way. Outlook is an effective way to get responses, but also so it is through Teams as well. So we've seen a wee bit there about what principal and the manager will see. So this is the type of response that you'll get on approvals. The fact it's been requested, you have a plan absence for approval for, it was a test one. Again, the details, these are the details that you will have inputted when creating the form. So you decide what goes in here. You can put as much or as little information as you want in here, and that's where you can add a comment. But remember that the member staff will only see that comment if you have that linked into your Outlook when you're creating that action. And again, this is the Outlook approval. And you still have that ability here to approve or reject, and you have the detail here as well. So that's important. And what I'd highly recommend is to have Teams on your phone. And that means if you've your notifications set up, you will get approvals coming through on your phone, and you can, again, reply to those, approve or reject, or follow up. Those sorts of things. Again, cancel requests is because I have sent it to myself, so a member staff can actually cancel the request themselves too. But the phone app is very, very useful, as is the Microsoft List app, because you often are just checking to see if covers come in and see if it's been updated or see if it's been approved. So we've seen there the online Excel sheet updates automatically. You could actually see that in real time. Hopefully you've seen that in real time. And you can see just the names of, first of all, the name goes in automatically if you're C2K. Email will go in automatically. The dates and all the other information is what you decide goes in there. And again, great backup, very rich data. Just a wee bit of a closer look there at option 3's Microsoft list, the date, start. You can actually change the views of this. The view, what I like about it is that you can change the view to today onwards. So it means previous requests, they're still there, but you only see what is coming up. And I also have changed it. You can see there's different colors there in start date. I've changed it to green for, the day that you are providing cover. So it's actually shows up really clearly, and it's very difficult to miss any cover this way. And so this approval in green is what Excel can't do. And it's color coded as well. So you have yes for green, you have to do this yourself, or no, you can change that to red as well. And that can all be done in the settings. And as I've shown you there, approvals in Teams, it's set up by the 3 dots. You can see requests, you can see rejected, you can filter for requests, and that allows you to sort of remind who makes the decisions to set those decisions up. Last wee thing is, you're probably sick of this, but there is a bit more detailed information in a few of the blogs that I've written. The QR code there will take you through the blogs page, but it does take you through the process of this in more detail and at a slower pace as well, and you can follow. The only thing that happened is that Microsoft have changed slightly the look of Power Automate, but you can turn that off and use the old sort of classic version of it, which I find is actually a wee bit easier to use. And all those details are in there as well. So that's me. Donna, back over to you again, unless anybody has any questions.